Hey, what's up you guys? It's Haley and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, hi, I'm Haley. Duh. Before we get started, I just want to say I'm sorry for not posting last week. I have been trying to do better, but my mom went in the hospital and she's been there for over a week now, and hopefully she gets out soon, but that is the reason why I haven't had time to film. Just pray for her, that'd be awesome. We are doing the mysterious disappearance of Bobby Dunbar. There might be videos on YouTube about it, but I haven't come across one yet, so I decided to make this. I didn't search or anything, but in all my time watching YouTube and looking at missing people, I haven't heard of this one, but like I said, it could be, so if there's already one, then I'm sorry. Credit to whoever first did it. But yeah, let's get started on the mysterious disappearance of Bobby Dunbar. Okay, so this all started on August 23rd, 1912. So over 100 years ago currently. It starts on August 23rd, 1912, and Bobby Dunbar was only 4 years old at the time. This day, him and his family was visiting Swayze Lake. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's Swayze Lake, swampy area of Louisiana. He wandered off and he just disappeared. Like they said, they turned their back for a minute or two, and when they looked back, he was gone. So they thought that someone had kidnapped him, or maybe he fell in the river, swamp, but they couldn't find him. After a sweep of the area, they did find footprints near a train trestle. So that went with their theory that he had got kidnapped. So that's what they decided to go on, that he had been kidnapped. So they thought he'd been kidnapped. And after investigators swept the area, this was 1912, so as much as technology they had back then, they swept the area and found footprints near a train trestle. And then there was reports that a stranger was seen nearby. So fearing that someone did kidnap their kid, Bobby Dunbar's dad, Percy Dunbar, he was a real estate agent and an insurance man. So back in this time they had money, so he could afford to hire a detective agency to look for his little boy. And he also offered a $1,000 reward. No questions asked. Just bring my kid back, you can have your reward, and no questions whatsoever will be asked. You can go. No charges pressed or anything. And $1,000 back in 1912 was a lot of money to them. Even with a large reward in place, there was nothing. No one came forward with the kid for the money. In addition to hiring detectives and scouring from Texas to Florida, they scoured this whole area trying to find their kid. They also got people to kill alligators around the area to make sure he hadn't been ate and he was inside one of their bodies, and they also set dynamite off in the lakes, so if any bodies was under the water, they would come up to the surface. But still, there was no sign of them, no trace. They didn't find anything by doing that either. And then in 1912, police heard a report about a salesman in Mississippi traveling with a young boy that matched Bobby's description. Police arrested William Walters and then rushed the child he had back to the family's home in Louisiana. Upon hearing about the discovery of this little boy that was coming back with the police, the whole town that Bobby lived in threw a whole celebration, a parade, so when he came back, he would have this big old homecoming and everything. It was such a big event, people for a decade later still remembers it. So this little boy did match the description that the Dunbars gave of Bobby, but it was a very vague description. It was just large round eyes, light hair, but it was turning dark. So that pretty much could be any kid that time. But they found this kid with this description, arrested Walters, threw him in jail, and took this kid back to the Dunbars' home. Had this big celebration, and they thought Bobby was home. And after 8 months, he could have looked very different. So that's what the Dunbars was going on. When they saw him, they're like, he looks different, but it's been 8 months, so he just changed a little bit. It is my kid, but he just changed a little bit. He came home. He wouldn't answer to his name. He wouldn't hug his mom. He just didn't want to really have anything to do with them. And like I said, he didn't answer to his name. Mom's name was Leslie. She concluded that it was her son, that was her son. He looked a little bit different, even though he doesn't like for her to hug him, kiss him, or answer to his name. That is her son. That's her. a mom knows her son, and that was her son. That's what she said. But then everything got more complicated when the man in jail, Walters, wrote the Dunbars a letter saying the kid that was with him was actually named Bruce Anderson, and his mom lived in North Carolina. Her name was Julia Anderson. That was actually his nephew, not their Bobby, and he told everybody that. A newspaper actually arranged for Julia Anderson to be flown to see this child, to see if she could actually identify the boy if it was her child. And this was national news at the time. It was 1912, but it was national news about two mothers claiming one child and not really knowing who the parents was. But while this was going on, all these newspapers was actually scrutinizing Julia Anderson and Leslie, because the newspaper thought, oh, you should be able to know who your son is. If this is your son, you would know. Like, how can two people be claiming one child? Like, you should know if it's your kid. And then unfortunately, Anderson's low-class background, because of it, the courts ruled in the Dunbars' favor and gave this child to the Dunbars. They were like, you let this man, even though it was his uncle, let him go around states with this man, and because you're poor and Dunbars have money, we're ruling in their favor to give this child. Even if it is yours, we don't care. They're getting the child. This is Bobby Dunbar, not your child. Newspapers played up what happened. One newspaper at the time said that when Miss Dunbar saw this child, she fainted. He ran to her, screamed, "Mommy." They hugged and she fainted. But then another one at the same exact time said, no, she looked down and didn't know who he was. That wasn't her kid. The papers played a lot in this also. Instead of trying to figure out whose kid it was, they were just trying to add drama to it. And that was another reason Mrs. Anderson, they didn't rule in her favor, because the newspaper said when she first saw him, she was uncertain if it was her kid either. So that was another reason they said, well, you didn't know if it was your kid or not, you can't have this one. Sorry. The people at the time was just so rude to Miss Anderson, Julia Anderson. She got called a prostitute, a whore. She had other kids, but they said that's all she was a prostitute. Even if it was her kid, she didn't deserve him because she was a prostitute, even though she wasn't. So back to Walters. He's still sitting in jail, even though he literally said, this is the kid, this is his mother, this is where I'm family with him, this is where I got him, this is where he came from. You can go get his mom. Because his mother didn't know at the exact second, yeah, that's my kid. Which, I mean, he doesn't know if it's their kid or not, but I mean, he was still sitting in jail. He was a traveling piano tuner and preferred to travel with children, which is kind of weird. But he liked traveling with kids because he said it brought business in. Like, all the women would run up and cuddle and swoon over the little boys, so he liked them being around with him, and he got more business that way. But even though he proved all this, he was still arrested. Then the case was closed. Bobby Dunbar was found. Walters was in jail for the crime. That was the end of the story, right? Wrong. Until years later. So then this kid grew up as Bobby Dunbar. And eventually, he even had a kid named Bobby Dunbar Jr. Until 2004, nearly a century, 100 years after Bobby Dunbar disappeared. Remarkably, the person who cracked this case was the daughter of Bobby Dunbar Jr. So this would have been her grandpa. She said after years of hearing the stories and her family telling the story and showing her newspaper articles and stuff like that, she decided to look it up. She wanted to see for herself that her grandpa was Bobby Dunbar and not Bruce Anderson. The way she actually solved this case led her to the home of Walter's defense attorney. So during this time, when she was at this man's house, or the defense attorney's house, she actually uncovered a witness statement that showed and said that Walters was nowhere near the crime when it happened. He was actually miles away from when the crime even happened. Witness proof that he was. So if he was miles away, how did he kidnap Bobby Dunbar? Within 4 years, she began pushing for a DNA test to determine whether the boy found was Bobby or Bruce. And while all this was going on, literally half her family disowned her. They said, you shouldn't be bringing up the past. It's done. It's over with. Bobby is Bobby. Bobby was supposed to return. Bobby returned home. There was nothing else to it. It wasn't this Bruce Anderson kid. It was Bobby the whole time. Why are you bringing it up? Why are you digging into stuff you shouldn't be digging into? Julia I keep calling her Anderson. She moved to Mississippi because during the whole case, all the scrutiny and everything, people in her hometown scrutinized her too. She decided to move to Mississippi with her 8 other children, but she also always told them about their half-brother that lived in Louisiana, Bobby Dunbar, aka Bruce. But she ended up dying before this case was ever really solved. The crazy part of the story is Percy Dunbar and Leslie Dunbar actually ended up getting a divorce just 5 years after Bobby's return. Apparently, Percy engaged in ongoing infidelities and allegedly stabbed a man in 1920. And later that year, Leslie divorced him. Margaret Cutright, which was the defense attorney, said that both Percy and Leslie didn't really believe that this child was their son Bobby, and that put a strain on their marriage, ended up making them go pretty much crazy. During the whole trial, he never waived his story. He never changed his story. He always said that this child was Bruce. His mother was Julia Anderson, and he never changed that. But turns out he was telling the truth. This boy wasn't with his real family. The mother never had her real child, never had her child. Another family was torn apart because they knew this wasn't their child, but still raised him. And this man was sitting in jail for a crime that he didn't commit. He did not kidnap Bobby Dunbar, but he was doing pretty much life in prison for it. In 2004, the DNA test came back. Proved the boy found traveling with Walters was not Bobby Dunbar. He was not genetically related to the Dunbar family. In fact, he was Walters' nephew. He had Walters' DNA. But unfortunately, this information came after Walters died. He died telling the truth and serving time for a crime that he never committed. He did write a statement one time that said, "It seems I must suffer now for an imaginary crime or sin that's never been committed. Dying, I can look through the eternal blue of heaven, thank God, and say my conscience is clear." I found that story and I thought it was crazy. A mother literally couldn't have her son back because another family had more money than her and she was unwed. They would not give her son back. So this child lived with a family he didn't know this whole time. I mean, he grew up great, but it wasn't Bobby Dunbar. So what happened to Bobby Dunbar? So thank you guys for watching. I just thought that was an interesting case and I wanted to share it with you guys. I have an idea for a series I want to start on my channel about missing people that are not in national news, not been all over the TV and Facebook and YouTube. Smaller cases that maybe someone's never heard of and can help get their story out there, what happened to them, and maybe locate them or help them out in some way. But I just want to say thank you guys for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications because I'm trying to get back in this routine. Like I said, my mom's in the hospital and that's why I couldn't do it last week. But here I am this week and trying really hard. But thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time and bye.